House of the Dragon, a Game of Thrones prequel show, is coming in 2022 on HBO, and Targaryen dragons are coming with it. It'll feature around 20 dragons, and in the part 1 I covered many of them. We start part 2 with the most beautiful Targaryen dragon, Sunfire. Sunfire, known as Sunfire the Golden, was the mount of Aegon II Targaryen during the Dance of the Dragons. He's one of the dragons HBO shared in their announcement few days ago. According to some sources, Sunfire was the most beautiful dragon ever seen upon the earth. Sunfire had gleaming gold scales, and his flames were golden as well. During the siege of Rook's Nest, Rhaenys Targaryen arrived, riding the large older red dragon Meleys, to attempt to leave the siege of the castle. This was all a trap, however, as the Greens had kept two of their own dragons hidden and in reserve, so they could take Meleys in an uneven fight. Aegon II appeared riding the younger but strong Sunfire, and his younger brother Aemon Targaryen also attacked riding massive Wagar, the last of the first generation Targaryen dragons. Rhaenys could not prevail against such odds, yet she did not flee, but flew head-on to meet her attackers. Meleys was still so large and powerful that she put up a brutal fight. When the dust settled, Meleys was dead, and Wagar was relatively unharmed, but Sunfire had been nearly killed and permanently maimed. Meleys managed to nearly rip one of his wing arms completely from his body, and as for Aegon II, he was left horrifically burned and with multiple broken bones. Sunfire survived the battle, but the world's most beautiful living dragon was left crippled and heavily scarred, just like its rider Aegon. Aegon and Sunfire reunited at Dragonstone. When Sunfire arrived, he fought and killed a remaining riderless dragon, Grey Ghost, although he took yet more wounds in the process. When Aegon finally rode Sunfire again, he was attacked by Daemon's younger daughter Baela, riding the dragon Moondancer, even younger dragon barely large enough to carry the 13-year-old girl. Moondancer was quick, however, while Sunfire was still half crippled and slowed by his injuries. Therefore, they were evenly matched and their duel was ferocious. It culminated when Sunfire tackled Moondancer in mid-air and drove her into the ground below. His larger size meant that he survived the fall while she was killed. Nonetheless, Sunfire was mortally injured by this fight and would never fly again. Sunfire died soon after. Despite being one of the younger dragons in the dance, Sunfire actually shared the highest dragon vs dragon kill count with the massive Wagar herself, 2 individual kills and 1 assisted. Both Sunfire and Wagar died as a result of their third dragon fights. For that matter, they were the only 2 dragons in the dance who ever lived through a dragon vs dragon fight and lived. Most dragons in the war were actually killed by human armies, or died in mutual kills in their first battle against another dragon. Next we have Stormcloud, who was a young male dragon bonded with King Aegon III Targaryen. Aegon used Stormcloud to escape an ambush at the sea. Prince Aegon managed to reach Dragonstone, clinging desperately to his dragon's neck. Stormcloud had been terribly wounded as he fled. When he arrived at Dragonstone, stubs of countless arrows were embedded in his belly, and there was a scorpion bolt through his neck. Stormcloud died within an hour, hissing as the hot blood gushed black and smoke from his wounds. After Stormcloud's death, Aegon would never fly again. Now we come to the most epic, strongest, fiercest, and battle-hardened dragons, Daemon's Caris and again Aemon's Wagar. The other dragon HBO teased in their announcement was Daemon's Caris. Caris was the dragon ridden by Prince Daemon Targaryen during the Dance of the Dragons. A veteran of many battles, he was known as the Blood Worm for his red scales. Caris was one of the older and larger dragons during the Dance of the Dragons. Daemon Targaryen rode Caris in his frequent campaigns in the Stepstones. As a result, Caris was not only one of the larger dragons during the dance, but the most battle-hardened and experienced in war. Indeed, only Wagar had been ever ridden in major wars before, during Aegon's conquest. But while formidable, Wagar had not been used in combat in the years leading up to the dance, the way that Caris was. Opposing armies were known to often simply flee or surrender when Caris approached. When Rhaenyra captured King's Landing in a surprise attack, Daemon rode Caris in the assault, while Rhaenyra rode Syrax. Later in the war, Aegon II's younger brother Aemon Targaryen resorted to a one-man war riding Wagar, burning out much of the Riverlands. Daemon hunted him for a long time on Caris, aided by other dragon riders and their dragons, but eventually he returned alone to Harrenhal, waiting as a challenge for Aemond to arrive. Caris was formidable, but Wagar was twice his size, nearly as large as Balerion had been during the War of Conquest. Facing him alone was the only way for Daemon to draw Wagar out, however, as Aemond had avoided ambushes by multiple other dragons. Aemond arrived, exchanged his final challenges to Daemon, then both took to the air on their dragons. The resulting battle above the God's Eye was one of the most epic dragon vs dragon fights of the entire Civil War, as two of the greatest living dragons fought in the air. Their shrieks shattered every remaining window in the castle and could be heard for miles around. Their fire breath filled the sky so that fishermen in the lake thought that the whole sky was aflame. In the end, Caris dived down from the sun on Aemon's blind side, due to his missing eye. Caris slammed into Wagar and they both continued to fight in free fall. Wagar tore out Caris' belly and used her massive jaws to rip one of his wing arms completely off, but Caris sank his teeth into Vagar's throat and maintained a death grip. As the two dragons grappled, Daemon rose from his saddle and made stunning mid-air leap from his dragon to Aemond on Vagar's back. Wielding the Valyrian steel sword Dark Sister, which had once been carried by Vagar's previous rider, Visenya Targaryen, Daemon thrust his blade through Aemond's empty eye socket. The force of his impact as he landed driving the sword through the back of Aemond's head. Both dragons plummeted into God's Eye below. Both the dragons and both the dragon riders died. By the end of the dance in 131 AC, only 4 dragons remained alive: Sheepstealer, the Cannibal, and Silverwing, who had been born years before the war, and the dragon Morning, which had hatched during the war. In other words, only one dragon who fought during the Dance of the Dragons, Silverwing, survived. Dragon Morning was born after the war, while the other two, Sheepstealer and Cannibal, were wild dragons that lived on Dragonstone. Sheepstealer was a wild male, with a taste for mutton. The small folk of Dragonstone named it for a self-evident reason. Sheepstealer's coloring was an ugly mud brown. He was not aggressive toward human unless provoked, but could be vicious and ill-tempered. He had a taste for mutton. While he devoured an occasional sheepdog, he never harmed a shepherd. The Cannibal got his name for practicing cannibalism, feasting on dead dragons, newborn dragons, and dragon eggs. He was one of 3 completely wild dragons dwelling on Dragonstone. The Cannibal was black as coal, with menacing green eyes. He was the largest and oldest of the wild dragons. That's all that was left of 20 dragons the Targaryens had just a year and a half ago, and they would soon die as well. Archmaester Marvin holds that the Order of Maesters, with their sacred goal to suppress magic, was responsible for the extinction of dragons. The word is they poisoned the last of the dragons. There were still many dragon eggs left after the war, and at least one of those hatched. The last dragon was a sick and misshapen thing, and she died young, in 153 AC, during the reign of King Aegon III Targaryen, which earned him the nickname Dragonbane. She had been a green female, small with withered wings. Many futile attempts were made to revive dragons. Aegon III Targaryen, the Dragonbane, had 9 mages cross the Narrow Sea to use their magics in attempt to hatch remaining dragon eggs. The pious King Baelor I Targaryen attempted to hatch his egg by praying over it. Aegon IV Targaryen ordered pyromancers to build 7 mechanical dragons that shot jets of wildfire. Hundreds of men died in a failed attempt to use them to invade Dorne. The tragedy of Summerhall resulted from the attempt of King Aegon V Targaryen to hatch dragon eggs. The Mad King pretended he was a dragon, using wildfire to burn his enemies, and believing he would become a dragon after he dies. None of these attempts brought dragons back until Daenerys. Ultimately, the reason Targaryens lost their dragons and thus their power was the Dance of the Dragons. So many dragons had died in the war that the Targaryens could not maintain a stable breeding population, and few survivors became inbred and sickly. Fortunately, however, the key event of House of the Dragon is the exact same event which led to their extinction, the Targaryen Civil War, the Dance of the Dragons, and we'll get to see them all on screen. Lots of dragons, a lot of epic dragon battles. All of that and more this Game of Thrones prequel series House of the Dragons brings in 2022 on HBO. Let me know your thoughts about everything, the prequel, its characters, the mighty dragons and their epic battles in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.